Captain Marcus Chun had seen a lot of strange things in his 15 years of salvage work, but nothing quite like the ship floating dead in the Kepler Nebula. The massive vessel stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its dark hull scarred by centuries of cosmic radiation and micrometeorite impacts. Every scanner on his ship, the Wayfinder, told him the same thing: no power, no life signs, no active systems. Just another derelict waiting to be stripped for parts. "Run another sweep, Zara," Marcus called to his engineer as he studied the readings. "Something that big doesn't just drift out here without a reason." Zara Kim looked up from her console, her cybernetic eye whirring as it adjusted focus. "Already did 3 sweeps, Captain." She's cold as vacuum. "Been dead for at least 500 years, maybe more?" "Hull composition is weird, though. Some kind of metallic compound I've never seen before." Marcus rubbed his stubbled jaw. 15 years of salvage work had taught him that the biggest scores often look like the biggest risks. And this ship was definitely both. The design was unlike anything in the databases. Sleek curves that seemed to flow like water frozen in time, with no visible weapons or engines. It looked more like a work of art than a spacecraft. "What do you think, Doc?" Marcus asked their archaeologist and third crew member, Dr. Elena. Vasquez pushed her glasses up her nose and consulted her tablet. "The aesthetic is fascinating. Pre-war construction, definitely. Maybe even pre-contact. Could be worth a fortune to the right museum." She paused, studying the images. "Though I have to admit, something feels familiar about it. Like I've seen similar designs somewhere before." Marcus made his decision. They needed this score. The Wayfinder was 3 payments behind on her mortgage, and creditors were starting to make threats. "All right, we're going aboard. Full environmental suits, stay in contact at all times. Zara, you're with me. Doc, monitor from here and guide us to anything that looks valuable." An hour later, Marcus and Zara floated through the airlock they'd cut into the ancient ship's hull. Their helmet lights cut through the darkness, revealing corridors that seemed to stretch infinitely in both directions. The walls were smooth, almost organic in appearance, with a faint pattern that reminded Marcus of neural networks. "Artificial gravity's offline," Zara noted, pushing off a wall to glide deeper into the ship. "But the atmosphere's still intact. Whoever built this knew how to make things last." They made their way toward what their scans suggested was the ship's central core. The deeper they went, the more elaborate the architecture became. Curved passages opened into vast chambers, filled with crystalline structures that caught and reflected their lights in rainbow patterns. Strange symbols covered the walls, not carved, but somehow grown into the metal itself. "Captain," Elena's voice crackled through their coms. "I'm picking up some readings from your location. Very faint, but there's definitely residual energy in those crystals. And Marcus, those symbols you're seeing, I've been running them through the database. They're not matching any known language, but the mathematical principles behind them are incredibly sophisticated. This might be more than just a derelict." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's cold interior. "Define more than just a derelict, Doc." "I think you might have found a ship from the predecessor civilization. The ones who supposedly vanished 30,000 years ago, before any of the current galactic species achieved spaceflight." Zara whistled low. "If that's true, this ship is worth more than every salvage operation in the sector combined. The technology alone would revolutionize interstellar travel." They pressed deeper into the ship, following corridors that seemed to pulse with a strange inner rhythm. The architecture became more complex, more alien, until they found themselves standing before a massive door covered in the same flowing symbols. Unlike everything else they'd encountered, this door seemed to hum with barely contained energy. "There's definitely power behind that door," Zara reported, consulting her scanner. "Low level, but active. Should I try to open it?" Marcus hesitated. Every instinct told him to be careful, but the potential payoff was too enormous to ignore. "Do it, but slowly." Zara placed her hand on what looked like a control panel. The moment her glove touched the surface, the symbols began to glow with soft blue light. The door split apart with a whisper of equalizing pressure, revealing a chamber beyond. The room was enormous, easily 100 meters across, dominated by a raised platform in the center. On the platform stood what could only be described as a throne, carved from the same strange material as the ship's hull. But it was what surrounded the throne that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. Holographic displays filled the air around the platform, showing star charts, technical diagrams, and streams of data in languages he couldn't read. And at the center of it all, a three-dimensional map of the galaxy that slowly rotated, marking thousands of points with pulsing lights. My God, Elena breathed through the cum. Marcus, those star charts. They're showing the positions of every major civilization in the galaxy, including some that we haven't discovered yet. This isn't just a ship, it's an observatory? They were watching us. All of us. Marcus approached the throne carefully, his heart pounding. As he drew closer, the holographic displays brightened and new information began appearing. Technical specifications for technologies that were centuries ahead of anything humanity had developed. Weapon systems that could crack planets. Faster-than-light drives that could cross the galaxy in days instead of years. Zara, are you recording all this? He asked. Every bit, she confirmed. But Captain, there's something else. The ship's systems are coming online. Power levels are rising throughout the vessel. It's like our presence here triggered some kind of automated sequence. That was when Marcus heard it. A voice speaking directly into his mind in perfect English. Despite the fact that his helmet cum was receiving nothing. Welcome. Marcus Chin of Earth, we have been waiting for you. He spun around. But the chamber was empty except for Zara, who was still focused on her instruments. Did you hear that? He asked. Hear what? Zara looked up, confused. Only you can hear us, Marcus Chun. You are the one we have chosen. Chosen for what? Marcus whispered, forgetting that speaking aloud would confuse his companion even more. To carry our legacy. To prevent the mistake that destroyed our civilization. To ensure that humanity does not follow our path to extinction. The voice was calm, ancient, filled with a sadness that seemed to span millennia. Images flashed through Marcus's mind, a galaxy-spanning civilization at its peak. Then war, destruction, the slow collapse of everything they had built. We were once like you. Young, ambitious, certain that our technology could solve any problem. But we learned too late that some knowledge comes with a price too terrible to pay. The weapons we created in our final war did not just destroy our enemies, they destroyed space itself, creating the dead zones that still scar the galaxy. Marcus knew about the dead zones, regions of space where faster-than-light travel was impossible, where ships simply vanished if they tried to enter. The galactic powers had spent centuries studying them, but no one understood what caused them. We built this ship as a warning and a gift. A warning about the dangers of unchecked technological advancement, and a gift of knowledge to help younger races avoid our mistakes. But the gift can only be given to one who will use it wisely. Why me? Marcus asked aloud, causing Zara to look at him with growing concern. Because you have spent your life recovering the lost and forgotten. Because you understand that not all treasures should be claimed. Because in your heart you still believe that knowledge should serve life, not destroy it. The holographic displays around the throne shifted, showing new information. Not weapons this time, but technologies for healing, for communication, for exploration. Medical advances that could eliminate disease. Agricultural techniques that could feed entire worlds. Clean energy sources that could power civilizations for millions of years. This knowledge is yours to share. Marcus Chun, but beware. Others will come seeking the weapons we once built. They will try to force this ship to reveal its deadliest secrets. You must ensure that they fail. How am I supposed to do that? Marcus asked. I'm just a salvage operator with a broken-down ship and a mountain of debt. You are more than you know. The ship will teach you. It will protect you. It will show you wonders beyond imagination. But first you must choose. Accept our legacy and your life will never be the same. Refuse and the ship will return to its slumber. Waiting for another who might prove worthy, Marcus looked around the chamber. At the incredible technology surrounding him, at the knowledge that could transform human civilization. Then he thought about his crew, about the people he cared about the responsibility being offered to him. "Captain," Zara's voice was tight with concern. "We've got a problem. I'm reading multiple ships dropping out of FTL at the edge of the system. Big ones. Military configuration. Choose quickly, Marcus Chun. The hunters have found us. Through the ship's hull, Marcus could feel the approaching vessels like a pressure against his mind. Battle cruisers, their weapons already charging, their crews preparing for boarding actions. Somehow, word had gotten out about the discovery, and now everyone wanted their piece of the... The first sign that something had changed came when the lights turned on. Not the harsh white illumination of modern ships, but a warm, golden glow that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. Throughout the ancient vessel, systems that had slept for 30 millennia began to wake up, and Marcus felt every one of them like extensions of his own nervous system. "Zara. Get out of here now," he said, his voice carrying new authority. "Take Elena and get the Wayfinder to minimum safe distance." "Captain, I'm not leaving you alone on this thing," Zara protested, but even as she spoke, she was backing toward the corridor they'd entered through. The air around the throne was beginning to shimmer with energy fields that made her instruments scream warnings. "Fear not for your companions. Guardian. They will be protected." Marcus could sense Zara and Elena racing back through the awakening corridors, could feel the Wayfinder's engines spinning up as his crew prepared for whatever was coming. But his attention was focused on the 3 battle fleets converging on their position, their weapons powered and targeting systems locked onto the ancient ship. Through the ship's newly awakened sensors, he could see everything. Admiral Thorne of the Terran hegemony's dreadnought Retribution, her massive rail cannons already trained on the derelict. The corporate consortium's fleet killer Profit Margin, bristling with plasma arrays and boarding pods. And most dangerous of all, the Vec Empire's bioship Bloodhunger, its living hull pulsing with predatory anticipation. "They see only a prize to be claimed," the ancient voice observed. "They do not understand what they truly face." "Show me," Marcus said. Settling into the throne that had waited 30,000 years for him, the moment he made contact with the chair, the universe exploded around him. His consciousness expanded beyond the confines of his human brain, merging with systems so advanced that they made current technology look like stone tools. He could feel the ship's hull, stronger than any material known to current science. He could sense the power cores deep in its heart, drawing energy from the quantum foam itself. And beneath it all, he felt the sleeping weapon systems, terrible in their potential. "Careful, Guardian. Power without wisdom destroyed us. Do not let it destroy you." The hegemony fleet moved first. Admiral Thorne was a veteran of a dozen border wars, and she'd learned that decisive action usually won the day. "All ships open fire. Disable that derelict before the others can claim it." 24 heavy rail cannons fired simultaneously, hurling projectiles at significant fractions of light speed toward the ancient ship. In normal space, nothing could have survived that barrage. Entire space stations had been reduced to debris by smaller attacks. The projectiles struck an energy field that hadn't been there a moment before and simply stopped. They hung motionless in space like insects caught in amber, their kinetic energy absorbed and converted into patterns of light that rippled across the ship's hull. "Impossible," Admiral Thorne breathed. "Nothing can stop a massed railgun barrage like that." Marcus felt the ship's amusement ripple through his consciousness. These children play with forces they barely understand. Shall we educate them? The stopped projectiles began to move again, but not toward the ship. Instead, they rotated in space and accelerated back toward the hegemony fleet with twice their original velocity. Point defense systems tried desperately to intercept them. But the ancient ship's guidance systems were beyond anything current. Technology could jam or confuse. 3 hegemony destroyers died in the first exchange. Their hulls cracked open like eggs by their own weapons. The surviving ships scattered, their perfect formation dissolving into chaos as captains tried to understand what they were facing. "This is Admiral Thorne to all fleets," came the transmission on all frequencies. "We're dealing with active predecessor technology. Recommend immediate withdrawal to reassess the situation." But the corporate consortium had different ideas. CEO Admiral Harrison had spent his entire career climbing the corporate ladder by taking risks that others wouldn't. This situation looked like the biggest risk and biggest reward of his lifetime. "Negative. Admiral," he transmitted back. "One ship, no matter how advanced, cannot stand against 3 fleets. All consortium vessels prepare for coordinated assault. Target their power sources." The consortium fleet moved with the precision of a corporate merger, calculated, ruthless, and focused entirely on the bottom line. Plasma arrays charged to full power while missile tubes loaded with fusion warheads. If they couldn't capture the ship intact, they'd settle for keeping anyone else from having it. Marcus felt their weapons, preparing, and reached deeper into the ship's systems. What he found there made him gasp. The defensive measures they'd just used weren't even classified as weapons by the ship's computer. They were listed under minor security protocols. "Your species shows promise," the voice observed. "You have not immediately reached for our most destructive capabilities. But be warned, the Vec approach, and they think differently than your kind." Through the ship's sensors, Marcus watched the Vec bioship closing in. Unlike the metal and plastic vessels of the other fleets, the Bloodhunger was a living creature bred specifically for war. Its hull wasn't armor, but scales that could regenerate from almost any damage. Its weapons weren't mounted guns, but biological systems that fired streams of acid, or launched parasitic organisms at enemy ships, and its crew weren't just soldiers. They were the Vec themselves, a species that had evolved from apex predators, and never quite learned to stop being hunters. "Weak. Meat ships flee from ghost ship." The Vec commander transmitted in heavily accented standard. "Vec claim prize. Ghost ship will feed clan for many seasons." The bioship opened its mouth, literally revealing rows of crystalline teeth that crackled with bioelectric energy. The Vec had learned to weaponize every part of their living vessels, turning them into creatures that could devour enemy ships whole. "These ones will not be deterred by demonstrations," the ancient voice warned. "They understand only strength. Show them what they face, or they will attempt to consume us." Marcus hesitated. Everything the ship was showing him suggested that its weapons could sterilize entire solar systems. The thought of using such power, even against an enemy, went against every instinct he had. But as the Vec ship accelerated toward them, jaws wide and eager, he realized he might not have a choice. "Warning to all approaching vessels," he transmitted on all frequencies. "This ship is under the protection of Terran salvage law and its automated defense systems. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The Vec commander's laughter sounded like tearing metal. "Human meat makes threats with dead ship. Vec will crack ghost shell and feast on fear flesh inside." The Bloodhunger launched itself forward with shocking speed, its living engines propelling it directly toward the ancient ship's hull. Bioplasma streamed from its weapon mouths while acid tipped. Drilling organisms prepared to bore through whatever armor they encountered. Marcus made his choice, the ship's main defensive array came online for the first time in 30 millennia. Space around the ancient vessel suddenly filled with geometric patterns of energy, not the crude force fields of current technology, but manipulations of space-time itself. The Vec bioship hit the outermost pattern and simply stopped existing in normal space. For a moment, the Bloodhunger existed in a state that had no name in any current language. It was neither here nor there, neither destroyed nor intact. Then reality reasserted itself and the bioship reappeared 50,000 kilometers away, completely undamaged but drifting helplessly in space. "Systems not responding," the Vec commander reported, confusion replacing his earlier bloodlust. "Ship beast sleeps. Cannot wake ship beast?" The ancient ship had done something impossible. It had reached into the Vec vessel and simply turned off its biological functions without harming a single crew member. The bioship was alive but unconscious, like a predator suddenly plunged into hibernation. Precision, Guardian. Always precision. We could have destroyed them utterly, but chose instead to neutralize the threat without causing unnecessary death. This is the path of wisdom. The demonstrations had their desired effect. The consortium fleet pulled back to a respectful distance, their weapons powering down as CEO Admiral Harrison reassessed his cost-benefit analysis. The hegemony ships formed a defensive perimeter but made no aggressive moves, and the Vec fleet clustered around their unconscious flagship, trying to figure out what had happened to their most powerful vessel. "This is Admiral Thorne to the entity controlling the predecessor vessel," came a careful transmission. "We acknowledge your superior capabilities. Perhaps we could discuss terms for sharing the knowledge contained aboard your ship." Marcus felt the ship's amusement again. 30,000 years of waiting, and the first thing the newcomers wanted to discuss was how to divide up the spoils. Tell them what you will, Guardian. But remember, the knowledge we possess is not a commodity to be bought and sold. It is a responsibility to be borne by those wise enough to use it properly. "This is Captain Marcus Chun, commanding officer of the vessel you've been targeting," he transmitted back. "And I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. This ship isn't a derelict to be salvaged. It's very much alive, and it's choosing who it shares its knowledge with." The response was immediate and predictable. The stealth ship dropped all pretense of hiding as it entered the contested space around the ancient vessel. Its hull bore no identifying marks, but its configuration was unmistakable to anyone familiar with Shadow Syndicate operations: sleek, predatory, and built for violence rather than exploration. "This is Operative Kane of the Shadow Syndicate," came a transmission that cut across all frequencies with unsettling clarity. "We claim the derelict vessel by right of prior discovery. All other parties have 30 minutes to withdraw before we enforce our claim." Marcus felt the ship's systems respond to the threat with something that could only be described as disgust. The ancient vessel had awakened to find the galaxy filled with conflicts and divisions, but the Shadow Syndicate represented something that even transcended normal evil. They were corruption made manifest, a cancer that spread through civilized space. "They carry one of our fallen with them," the voice whispered in Marcus's mind. "Can you feel it? The wrongness that emanates from their ship's core?" Marcus reached out with his newfound senses and immediately wished he hadn't. Deep within the Syndicate vessel, something that had once been predecessor writhed in mechanical agony. It had preserved itself beyond natural death, but at the cost of everything that made existence worthwhile. Now it was neither alive nor dead, but trapped in a state of eternal hunger for the power it had once possessed. "What is that thing?" he asked, fighting down nausea. As HEK Dashmore, once our greatest scientist. "When our civilization fell, most of us chose to die with honor rather than see our legacy corrupted. But some feared death more than corruption. They used technologies we had forbidden, binding their consciousness to machines and crystals, sacrificing their souls for the promise of immortality. Through the ship's sensors, Marcus watched the Syndicate vessel approach. Its crew was preparing for boarding operations, but they weren't targeting the 3 military fleets. They were coming straight for the ancient ship, confident that their mysterious patron would give them an advantage that conventional forces couldn't match. "Admiral Thorne," Marcus transmitted to the hegemony fleet. "You might want to fall back. What's coming isn't interested in negotiation. Captain Chun, we have a responsibility to secure this vessel for the good of humanity," Thorne replied. "We can't simply abandon such a valuable discovery to criminals." Marcus felt a spark of admiration for the Admiral. She was wrong about a lot of things, but her dedication to protecting humanity was genuine. "Then work with me, not against me. This ship chose me as its guardian for a reason, and right now that reason is heading straight for us." The corporate consortium had reached a different conclusion. CEO Admiral Harrison was already ordering his fleet to withdraw to the edge of the system. Whatever profit the predecessor technology might generate wasn't worth tangling with the Shadow Syndicate's enforcers. "Consortium vessels are standing down," Harrison transmitted. "This is beyond our operational parameters." The Vec fleet was still trying to wake up their bioship flagship, leaving only the hegemony forces to face whatever the Syndicate was bringing to the fight. But Marcus was no longer worried about conventional weapons or normal tactics. What concerned him was the thing in the Syndicate ship's hold and what it might do when it got close enough to the ancient vessel. It seeks to merge with our systems, the voice explained, to become one with this ship and use its power to transform the galaxy according to its mad vision. We must not allow this to happen. How do I stop it? By becoming what you were meant to be. Not just the guardian of our legacy, but the protector of all those who come after us. The Syndicate ship opened fire without warning. Its weapons weren't designed to disable or capture, they were built to kill quickly and efficiently. Plasma beams lashed out at the hegemony vessels while boarding pods launched toward the ancient ship. Marcus reached into the ship's defensive systems and felt power beyond imagination respond to his will. Energy shields that could withstand stellar explosions snapped into place around the hegemony fleet, protecting them from the Syndicate's assault. Point defense systems that operated faster than conscious thought, tracked and destroyed the boarding pods before they could reach the ancient vessel's hull. But the real threat wasn't in the conventional attack. It was in the thing that suddenly materialized on the ship's bridge, phasing through the hull as if solid matter meant nothing to it. HFY War had once been predecessor, but 30,000 years of artificial existence had twisted it into something nightmarish. Its form shifted constantly between energy and matter, held together by technologies that should never have been created. Where its eyes should have been, stars burned with the light of dying civilizations. So young, it spoke in a voice like breaking crystal. So naive. You think you can wield our power with your primitive understanding? You are nothing more than an infant playing with forces beyond your comprehension. Marcus remained seated on the throne, though every instinct screamed at him to run. The ship's systems were responding to the intruder's presence, but they seemed confused, uncertain how to deal with something that was both predecessor and not. Do not fear, Guardian, the ancient voice whispered. This creature has power, but it has lost wisdom. And wisdom is always stronger than power alone. I know what you want, Marcus said aloud. You want to merge with this ship, to use its technology to remake the galaxy in your image. But you've forgotten something important. HFY War laughed, and the sound made the walls themselves shudder. What could a savage like you possibly know that I have forgotten? You've forgotten why your people built this ship in the first place. They didn't create it to conquer or destroy. They built it as a warning, a lesson about the dangers of unchecked power. You're living proof of that lesson. The creature's form solidified into something more recognizably humanoid, though still wrong in fundamental ways. Lessons are for the weak. I have transcended mortality, transcended the limitations that destroyed our people. I am evolution itself. Marcus felt the ship's systems reacting to his emotional state, drawing strength from his determination. No, you're regression. You're everything your people learned not to be. HFY War moved toward the throne with predatory grace, its form shifting between states of matter. Enough philosophy, child. You will surrender control of this vessel, or I will take it from your dead hands. That was when the ship itself finally responded. Not the defensive systems or the weapons arrays, but something much more fundamental. The consciousness that had been embedded in its core began to assert itself. And Marcus realized he was no longer dealing with just an ancient computer system. We are Thelen Kess. Last voice of our people, the presence announced, speaking not just to Marcus but to the abomination threatening them both. We have waited 30 millennia to face you, HFY War. To finish what should have been completed when our civilization fell, the ship's interior began to change around them. Walls flowed like liquid, reconfiguring themselves into something that resembled a courtroom more than a bridge. Holographic figures appeared in the empty spaces, the preserved memories of the greatest minds the predecessor civilization had ever produced. You have no right to judge me, HFY War snarled. I preserved our knowledge when the rest of you chose death. I am the true heir to our legacy. You preserved nothing but your own fear, Felenkes replied. Knowledge without wisdom is not preservation, it is corruption. You have spent 30,000 years proving our point. The holographic figures began to speak, their voices overlapping in a complex harmony. They spoke of the choices that had defined their civilization, the mistakes that had led to their downfall, and the hope they had placed in the younger races that would follow them. Marcus found himself understanding things that no human had ever known. The predecessors hadn't been destroyed by war or natural disaster. They had destroyed themselves through the pursuit of power without purpose. Some had sought to transcend mortality, others had tried to control the fundamental forces of the universe. In the end, their greatest achievements had become their greatest failures. This is what you would bring to the galaxy, he said to Ashekmor. Endless hunger without satisfaction, power without joy, knowledge without understanding. The creature was beginning to waver, its form becoming less solid as the ship's systems worked to contain it. But it wasn't finished yet. With a scream of rage that shattered several holographic displays, it launched itself directly at Marcus. The impact never came. Instead, Marcus felt himself merge more completely with the ship's consciousness than ever before. For a moment, he was no longer Marcus Chun, salvage operator from Earth. He was something greater, a bridge between what the predecessors had been and what humanity could become. Power flowed through him. But it was controlled power, wisdom-guided force. He reached out and simply stopped the creature's attack. Not with violence, but with understanding. He showed Ashekmor what it had lost. What it could have been if it had chosen differently all those millennia ago. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. Faced with the reality of its own choices, the creature simply collapsed. Its artificial existence, sustained by technologies that fed on desperation and fear, could not survive contact with genuine wisdom and compassion. Peace, old one, Marcus said as the